Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am filming a long time coming book haul, something that I should have done a couple of weeks ago. Currently on a book buying ban. It started on the 14th. That's when the last book that I ordered came in the mail, and I am trying to, or I'm not going to order any more or purchase any more books until April 14th. Over the past at least 2 to 3 months, I've definitely gotten at least 60 books, if not 70. That is a lot even for me, and I honestly have enough books to read for the rest of the year. I don't even need to be buying any at all for the rest of the year, but I can't promise myself that, and I love being surrounded by books and always just thinking that one day I'll read them or I will just want to read them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Books are mostly contemporary fiction. I think I have a couple of nonfiction, but mostly contemporary fiction, and really I just kind of realized that my reading taste has changed and since last year, or maybe it has changed since before then. I think I mentioned this when I was building my bookshelf, which I had to buy another bookshelf because I'm running out of space, but I really thought that my favorite genre was thrillers, mystery, horror, and last year I read probably, I would say maybe like 15 thriller books, and I know out of 50 that's not a lot, but I think that is a significant amount that I actively like wanted to read, that were on my TBR, that were anticipated, or books that I wanted to read because I thought that I would like the genre, and they ended up being kind of like 2 and 3 star books for me, and I realized that maybe I didn't like thrillers the way that I thought that I did. But I realized that a lot of contemporary fiction that I was reading, or realistic fiction that I was reading, rated a lot higher for me, and I think that when I was in high school and I would like to read, I really enjoyed realistic fiction, books that could happen at any time, could be real. Yeah, I picked up a lot of contemporary fiction. A lot of it is newer, more popular, probably have heard of it before, so yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. The first book that I have is A Very Nice Girl by Imogen Crimp. This is about a girl named Anna. I think she moves away from her family and starts singing at a bar. I'm thinking this is in the UK, I'm not exactly sure. And she meets an older man, and kind of their relationship starts from there, and I think they kind of have maybe a power dynamic. This is one of the more popular books that I have heard of lately in the contemporary fiction genre. I haven't really heard a lot of reviews, so I'm not sure, if people are really enjoying it, but I picked this one up. Next book that I have is Impossible to Forget by Imogen Clark. So this one is about a girl named Romany, and her mother passes away, and she is left under the guidance of 4 of her mother's friends. 3 of them are friends that her mom has had since she was in college. And Romany herself is in high school, finishing up her last year, so I'm not sure which country she is, but she's at least 16 or 18, so the friends have been friends a long time of her mom. And then one person who's like kind of random, and they're all kind of tied and connected together by Angie. Angie is her mother, and I'm not actually sure what genre this is. I think it's contemporary fiction. When I read the synopsis, it actually I honestly don't even think that I realized that what this was about. So I think this really discovers grief and how people pull us together, and how people are working through their grief and what it means to them. So I think this one's gonna be really interesting because I kind of forgot what it was about. This book that I have is The Idiot by Elif Botman. This is about a girl named Selin. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. She's Turkish. The year is 1995, and she is starting her first year at Harvard, where she begins connecting with an older math student via email. And then at the end of the semester or during a break, they go back to their respective home countries. I think she goes to Hungary, and he goes to Budapest. And I'm not really sure if they like meet up there. I don't know if it's just their relationship stays online, but I've heard that this book just really gets deep into the idea of a first love and kind of the obsession almost that you have with that first love and the disappointment that you experience. I also heard that this book really highlights how food can bring families together, so I picked this one up. The next book I have is this short one, Box Hill by Adam Mars Jones. This is about a young man, I think he's 19, and he is in the Box Hill section of London. I don't know where that is. From what I understand, it's like a very like grassy, wooded area. I don't know if it's necessarily like a park or like a national park. I'm really not sure, but he meets a older man, I think I'm like 10 years older, who is gay, and they start a relationship together, and kind of just the dynamics of that relationship and what it means for this young man who has only ever been in straight relationships to explore his sexuality with a man that has, I think he's been out, I'm not sure, but I know that this book was written in the 70s, and it's like a reflection of, or it's based in the 70s, and it's a reflection of that time in the author's life. So I'm really excited and interested. The next book that I have is, I think, more of a classic. It is The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. I just know that this is about a woman whose husband just wakes up one day and decides to leave her, and she completely loses herself because she has already dedicated and devoted all of her life, or her adult life, to her marriage and being a mother, and now that her husband has decided to leave her, she really doesn't know who she is. So I just heard a lot of good things about this one. The next book that I have is Outline by Rachel Cusk. This is my first Cusk. I actually don't think I've heard of her. Don't come after me. I don't think that I haven't heard of her. I heard that her books are amazing, and this is a part of a trilogy. This is about a young woman who is teaching abroad. I think she's teaching a writing course, and it's kind of just like living her life, but of course there is dynamic and conversation that goes on. Synopsis says it's about a woman facing a great loss, so there's some sort of loss in the book, and yeah, I'm excited to read this one and see if I can get into Cusk. The next book that I have, and one that I'm more excited for, is Intimacies by Katie Kitamura. It is about a young woman who is traveling abroad. I think she's traveling abroad away from her home country to translate for a criminal, or someone who's been convicted of a crime, and he speaks, I think, her home language, and kind of begins to fall in love with him. And I think it kind of, I've heard a lot of different kind of perspectives of the book as far as the intimacy of having conversation with someone and speaking to someone, but also from the criminal justice standpoint of finality of words and how words are translated and what that means for the law. So I think that there's a lot to take from this book, and I'm really excited to read it. The next book that I have is Little Scratch by Rebecca Watson. This follows a narrator, a young woman who, over the course of a day, who has been sexually assaulted by her boss, and how that kind of is something that nags at her until it just breaks, and what she does with that. So I'm really interested to read this one. I have another little book. This is Assembly by Natasha Brown. This follows a black woman who is dating a white man, and I think that they both have like well-to-do jobs or are doing well for themselves, and I think that they are in their late 20s, early 30s, and she has been invited to go to a dinner or some kind of barbecue at his home. I'm not sure if she's never met his family before, or if she hasn't met extended family and friends before, but from what I understand, she is going to be in close proximity with a lot of white people who she does not know, upper class white people, and kind of just following that, from getting ready to the train ride to going to the party. And I know that this is a deeper discussion of class and wealth, and racism, in Britain, in the UK. I'm American, so of course I don't really, I can't say that things are similar because I don't know, but I know that that is definitely something that we speak about here often, but honestly I don't think that there is enough conversation, enough dialogue about it, so I'm really interested to read this one. The next book that I have is Hysteria, a novel by Jessica Gross. This is about a young woman who is in a, I don't want to say she's in a lot of pain, but from what I understand, she is kind of acting through certain behaviors in her life, or certain things in her life sexually, and feels shame for that, or feels upset at herself for that, and she ends up meeting someone new who is, I think she is convinced they are like Sigmund Freud or Freud, and like she deeply feels like this. It's not like just, oh, they're similar, like she thinks that he is him, and it kind of unravels her descent into hysteria and madness, and it's short, and I just was like, yeah, that sounds like something I would enjoy. This book that I have, and another one that I'm really excited about, is Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. This is a big one. I think that I saw that it made a lot of people's like top books of 2021. This is about three main characters: Amy, who is a trans woman, her partner or maybe ex-partner Amos, who detransitioned to live as a man, and Katrina, who is Amos's lover. So I'm not exactly sure like what the dynamic of their relationship is or was. And Amos ends up having a baby with Katrina, but Katrina is not interested in keeping the baby, and so he's thinking that maybe this is what can hold he and Amy together in their relationship. And I just heard that the deconstruction of family, and what does that mean? What is a family? You know, raising children, like there's a lot of, I think that, you know, when you initially first look at it, it might, I've just heard that it's just not what you think it is, and that it's like really, really good. The next book that I have is Woman Talking, a novel by Miriam Towis. I'm pretty sure this is nonfiction. This is about a group of women, Mennonite women, who I think they're living in America. I don't know exactly what state, but they are like, the tradition where they live is that they are silent, or they're not speaking a lot, or the laws are saying that, you know, maybe they can only be speak when spoken to, but there's crimes and things happening to the women and their children, and they're all meeting up together at night and just talking about it. What can we do about it? And also other things that have happened, and why do they you know, stay in this environment, and what does it mean to them? And I heard that it was just a really interesting conversation, so I picked this one up. The next book that I have is Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. From what I understand, this might be the best book that I have. A lot of people seem to love this, and I also heard that the audiobook is really good. This is from the perspective of Dracula's first wife, and letters that she's writing to him throughout their relationship that is highly abusive. And I just heard it was fantastic. I heard that the letters are really good, and people wanted more. They just wish that there was more. They want to hear more. I think this is going to be really interesting because I read Dracula in my Gothic fiction class last semester. It was one of the last classes that I took in college. and it was my favorite book that we read in that class. So I'm really excited. I just think it's going to be a really interesting take, and I heard it is excellent. The book that I have is Sometimes I Trip on How Happy We Could Be by Nicole Perkins. These are essays, and this just kind of dives into her life growing up in Los Angeles, navigating relationships and stereotypes, intimacy, and questioning the female gaze. And I was just like, yeah, I want it. So here we are. The book that I have is Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sabawi. This is about a man that is from the rubble-strewn streets of US occupied Baghdad. Hadi, he is a scavenger, and he is collecting body parts and putting them together, I guess, to make something. He's trying to prove a point to the government to show just how impactful the war is and how, you know, people are dying, but what he puts together ends up disappearing and, you know, attacking people and becoming a monster, pretty much like Frankenstein. And I just heard that it is a really good discussion on war and life and what does that mean. I mean, I think that the actual, like, you know, monster of it is not really like the big idea of it. So I don't know, I always like a deeper meaning in books. So I got this one. We're hitting the home stretch. I only have a couple more. This book that I have is Segregation by Experience, Agency, Racism, and Learning in the Early Grades by Jennifer Keyes-Adar and Kiyomi Sanchez Suzuki Colgrove. This is a nonfiction book that I picked up at Black Pearl, which is a Black-owned bookstore in Austin, Black-owned and operated, and it is about racism in early learning classrooms like kindergarten, pre-K, and it's kind of a study that was conducted in a classroom from a teacher who is, I think she's West Indian, but she's in the African diaspora, and she's recording her students, who I think also a lot of them are immigrants as well. And then this footage is being shown to students who are white or from, I don't know, middle or upper class background, but their other students are being shown the footage in which this teacher has been teaching her students, and they're both lower level primary grades, like kindergarten, first, second grade. And the teacher, you know, that is the original teacher is, you know, thinks that, you know, the lessons are fine and things are going well, but a lot of the feedback is that a lot of the kids who are watching the footage of her teaching think that the children are loud and unruly and they're not learning and they're not smart. And it kind of dives into that discussion, you know, at that early age, you know, first, second, third grade, that's 6, 7, 8 years old. Why, where does this come from? Why does it start? And I picked this up, you know, I'm passionate about education, so this was like, yes ma'am. So this one, nonfiction. Next book that I got is My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathways to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies by Resba Menakem. This is a book about pretty much how the trauma of racism has impacted Black people, and how you can heal from that. I think I picked it up because I like to understand how things are impacting groups, especially groups like myself, but also the trauma and how that's handed down. I think that that's such a big thing, especially as I've grown up, is realizing like what you get, like what comes, you know, from your own house or your own community or your own school, like just conversations like that. And I think it's just also cool that, you know, it dives into how we can heal from that. But that's why I picked this one up. So this one seems really educational, both those two books. The next book that I have is Anonymous Sex, edited by Hilary Jordan and Cheryl Lulian Ton. Yeah, this book is stunning. I just love red. And from what I understand, this is just basically a book about intimacies and different relationships relating to intimacy. I'm only saying intimacy because I work in a middle school. Not that I think that any of my students are like actively trying to find me, but yeah. And that book I think just has a lot of just kind of greater discussion about intimacy in general. What does it mean for us? How has it changed in the last couple of years? That kind of thing. I like a discussion. I like a dialogue. So that's why I picked that one up. Yeah, that is the last 18 books that I've hauled in the past couple of months, and I actually had 2 more books, but I read them this February, and I'm going to talk about them in my wrap-up, so I didn't want to show them because I didn't want to kind of repeat them. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.